Compression is difficult. If you've been working in audio for any time, you understand this. I made a lot of music before I had much of an understanding of how a compressor worked at all. So if you don't know what's going on, don't worry, you are not alone. Years ago, I ran across a technique that finally made compression make sense to my brain and to my ears. This is very much an oversimplification, but compression takes the really loud moments and makes them a little bit quieter so that you can bring up all of your mix, which in turn makes the quieter sounds louder. One thing that makes this even more difficult is that compressors look different from one another and they act different from one another. This is mostly going to be about compressors that have 4 standard controls: threshold, ratio, attack, and release. The technique I'm going to show you is not my own. I used to teach a music production class, and I inherited this textbook called Mixing with Your Mind, written by Michael Stavrou. It's difficult to find the book online. If you do find it, you're going to pay a lot for it. He had some really unorthodox, kind of off-the-wall approaches to recording audio and mixing audio. Mostly, I'm going to use FabFilter's C2 compressor. I'm not sponsored by FabFilter in any way. I have all of their plugins. They're fantastic. They give you nice visual feedback, and they don't require an iLok, so I can use them on all of my different computers. Let's take a look at the C2. These are the 4 main controls right here: threshold, ratio, attack, and release. Lots of other controls, side chaining, all that. Don't get overwhelmed. We're going to start with the basics. I'm going to demonstrate on a handful of instruments, but we're going to start with an acoustic guitar. You know what? I should probably put on headphones. Princess Leia headphones. I'm going to start by bringing the threshold all the way down so it's compressing everything. This will make more sense in a minute. I'm going to take the ratio, I'm going to move it all the way up. You can kind of see what that's doing here. This is the ratio. Yeah, 1:1 and then 100:1 or infinite. It's a brick wall right there. Bring that down, make a fast attack and a fast release. This is going to sound lovely. And you're done. There are some makeup gain issues as we go along, and I think I'll do a lot of that in post. Pay attention to what I'm doing and why I am doing it. I'm going to bring the threshold up just a tad, but it still sounds like garbage, and it's supposed to. We're going to focus on the first control here, and that is the attack. Listen to what happens when I adjust the attack. Don't focus on numbers, just listen and you can see the visual effects of what's happening. And also don't pay attention to the distortion. I know that's hard to do, but that's going to go away. But listen to the first part of the sound as I make this adjustment. You'll notice that when I slow the attack time down, it's not really doing anything at all. There's such a quick attack to the acoustic guitar sound as I strum. By the time the attack even engages, I'm on to the next transient. I'm looking for that sweet spot where it's actually doing something, but it's not doing too much. I don't want to choke off all of that initial transient. I'm going to have drums going on, so I don't need my acoustic guitar jumping out of the mix all the time. And I want to make sure that I can fill it up with all the in-between resonance between the strums. So now let's look at the release. My goal here is to get a groove out of this sound, and I want to make it as long as I can. So when it's super fast, as soon as that attack happens, it's releasing the compressor, so you're getting a lot of like this kind of sound, right? But when the release is too long, it's smoothing out the dynamics too much. So I want to find that spot where I actually feel a groove. You don't have to get every step perfect. You can go back and change it. And there's a lot of this is open up to creativity. Also, I'm listening to this acoustic guitar by itself. Once I get a little further along, I'll try to listen more in context, but we're just trying to learn how to use these controls. So now we've got our attack time set, kind of moderate for both of these. Now we're going to move back to the ratio. Right now, anytime it's crossing the threshold, which is so low that you can't even see it, it is flattening out everything above the threshold. What's cool here with the fab filters is I can listen to what is actually crossing the threshold, which is everything. This is going to help minimize the effects of the pumping that you get with the compressor. Sometimes I want a lot of that, sometimes I don't. Another thing to pay attention to, most of the time when a control is set straight up on something like this, that's probably where it functions the best. The ratio 3:1, which is straight up 12 o'clock right here, or maybe not quite. Looks like this one, that's interesting, is 2.75. That's there for a reason. When I bring this down, you're hearing all that makeup gain. I'm going for a natural quality here, so I don't want to overdo it. If you see that my ratio, I landed on 2.6:1, but I am compressing 12, 13 dB. So I'm going to take this threshold here, and I'm going to move it back up until I get close to the 2 to 3 decibels of reduction. I can listen to what's crossing the threshold. The quieter sounds are not being compressed, only the louder sounds. Now I'm going to bypass it, and I'm going to get my sound even to where you can look at the meters too here. And you can kind of see that the peaks are about the same, but now the consistent level of the track, the in between the attack, that is louder. And if I accentuate this some, speed up my attack, now notice that I can increase the gain. My basic level of the sound is the same, but let's go back and forth between bypass. You'll notice it's not near as full, and those transients are worn off the front when it's engaged, and it just helps smooth out the sound. Typically, my goal is to compress it as much as I can until I hear it, especially on a track like this. It's more like a shaker in the overall mix. I just want it to be there, and I want it to be solid. And if I lose some of the attack on the transients, well, I'm going to get that from the drums. Let's look at the bass guitar this time. So I'm going to set the controls the way that I want them. Threshold, ratio, attack, release. Let's see how bad this sounds. Okay, I am squashing it, so I'm going to bring this back up so I'm not getting it too much. I'm going to bring this makeup gain up so we can hear it. Let's focus on the attack. One thing to keep in mind, this bass part is almost always hitting with a kick drum. So if I lose some of the attack on the bass, well, I'm getting it from the kick drum, and I like to see them as one instrument and not two. It's the attack of the kick, and then the kick makes a sound, which is what the bass is playing, a pitch. I might be a little more aggressive on the attack to make sure that I can bring up the in-betweens. So okay, this is different here. I think I'm going to opt for a more moderate release time. I don't necessarily need those to really punch. Okay, I want them to be solid and consistent. Now I'll bring back my ratio. forgive me, the pops and clicks. There's a few there. Let's just get that here. And then we'll bring my threshold back up, and we'll... Don't do that. We'll bring my makeup gain back. You have to be careful with the attack. If it's too fast, it can thin out the bass, and we don't want to do that. One more thing to keep in mind, and I'm getting into multiple video territory here, but you don't always need one compressor. Sometimes you need 3. And that doesn't mean you compress the sound the exact same way 3 times. It means you look at it piece by piece. Is the performance too dynamic? Are there moments that stick out way too much? Well, I might hit those with a really fast attack, or maybe a limiter at the beginning, and then use another compressor to kind of get it pumping and grooving the way I want. And then another compressor to really push it into the aggressive category. Every track is different, every instrument is different, every compressor is different. You have to make individual choices on individual sounds, and that's what makes a great mix when you put it all together. I hope you enjoyed this. This technique really helped me. I use it all the time. I have some other videos on mixing I'd love for you to go check out. I'll make sure to link to those. But yeah, that's all I got for this. Give this technique a try. I think it will really help you out. Take care.